The salt air hit my face as I bent down to pick up another sand dollar. Nearly perfect, just a small chip on one edge. I added it to my collection basket and continued walking along the shoreline of my Laguna Beach property, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from my cousin Lisa. Uncle Dennis is at it again. Says he's handling the beach house situation, whatever that means. I smiled slightly and pocketed the phone. Let him handle it. I'd learned years ago that sometimes the best response to family drama was silence and preparation. Uncle Dennis had been trying to get his hands on this property since my grandmother left it to me 5 years ago. The house behind me stood 3 stories tall, weathered blue shingles and white trim, worth approximately $4 million in today's market. My grandmother had purchased it in 1987 for $320,000. Back when Laguna Beach was still affordable for middle-class families. She'd worked as a teacher for 35 years, saving every spare dollar, investing wisely in blue-chip stocks during the 90s boom. When she died, she'd left the property solely to me, not to her son Dennis, not split among the grandchildren, just me. Her will had been crystal clear, executed by one of Orange County's most respected estate attorneys. Uncle Dennis had contested it, of course, spent 18 months and roughly $60,000 in legal fees trying to prove undue influence, diminished capacity, fraud. The probate judge had dismissed every claim. The will stood, but Uncle Dennis wasn't the type to accept defeat gracefully. You don't even live there full time, he'd complained at last year's Thanksgiving dinner. It's a waste. I could turn it into something profitable. I'd simply passed him the sweet potatoes and changed the subject. My phone buzzed again. This time it was my younger brother Marcus. Just got a weird call from some bank. They were asking about the Laguna property. Said Dennis listed you as a co-owner. Call me. I stopped walking. Co-owner. Now that was bold. Even for Uncle Dennis. I pulled up my email and scrolled through the unread messages. There, buried beneath promotional emails and newsletters, was a message from Pacific Coast Bank, received 4 days ago. Subject line, mortgage application property documentation required. I opened it. Dear Miss Parker, we are processing a commercial mortgage application for the property located at 847 Ocean Vista Drive, Laguna Beach, California. Our records show you as a listed owner. Please review the attached documents and contact our office within 48 hours to verify. The attachment was a mortgage application for $2 million. Applicant Dennis Morrison. Property address my grandmother's beach house. My beach house. I sat down on a piece of driftwood and read through the entire application. Dennis had listed himself as co-owner and property manager. He'd included tax records showing the property address, public information, easily obtained. He'd included utility bills in his name, which made sense, since I'd foolishly allowed him to handle some maintenance issues last year, and he'd switched the accounts to his name for simplicity. He'd even included photographs of himself standing in front of the property, keys in hand, smiling like he owned the place. What he hadn't included was any actual deed, any title documentation, any proof of ownership beyond his own claims. I dialed the number listed on the email. A cheerful woman answered on the second ring. Pacific Coast Bank, commercial lending. This is Jennifer speaking. Hi Jennifer, this is Sarah Parker. I received an email about a mortgage application for 847 Ocean Vista Drive. Oh yes, Miss Parker. Thank you so much for calling back. We just need you to verify a few details and sign off on the application. Mr. Morrison mentioned you've been out of the country, so we've been trying to reach you. Out of the country. I'd been in Los Angeles, 45 miles away, going to work every day at the architectural firm where I'd been employed for the past 6 years. I haven't been out of the country, I said calmly, and I'm the sole owner of that property, not a co-owner, the sole owner. There was a pause. I'm sorry, could you repeat that? The property at 847 Ocean Vista Drive is held in my name alone. Dennis Morrison has no ownership stake whatsoever. He's my uncle, and he's apparently attempting to commit mortgage fraud. Another pause, longer this time. Miss Parker, I'm going to transfer you to our senior loan officer. Please hold. Elevator music filled my ear. I watched the waves crash against the rocks while I waited. A group of surfers bobbed in the distance, waiting for the perfect set. Miss Parker, this is Robert Chen, Senior Commercial Loan Officer. I understand there's some confusion about the Ocean Vista property. No confusion on my end, I said. I own the property outright, held in an irrevocable trust established by my grandmother's estate. Dennis Morrison is not a co-owner, not a partial owner, not authorized to mortgage the property in any capacity. I see, and you have documentation to support this. Extensive documentation, the original trust documents, the probate court ruling, the recorded deed, title insurance, everything. I can have my attorney send it over within the hour. Robert Chen's voice shifted from friendly to professional. That would be appreciated. Miss Parker, I need to inform you that we've already approved this application in principle. We're scheduled to close on Wednesday, 3 days from now. Based on what documentation? I asked. Mr. Morrison provided what appeared to be legitimate property records, tax statements, and he's been making all the property tax payments for the past 18 months according to our verification, because I'd let him. Because when he'd offered to help with the property management, to take some burden off my shoulders, I'd stupidly agreed to let him handle the county tax payments. I'd been reimbursing him quarterly. I had every check, every receipt, every email confirming the reimbursement. I'd thought I was being nice to family. Mr. Chen, I'm going to have my attorney David Kowalski at Kowalski and Partners contact you immediately. In the meantime, I strongly suggest you halt all proceedings on this application. We'll certainly look into this, Miss Parker. But I should mention that Mr. Morrison has already paid substantial fees, and if this turns out to be a misunderstanding, it's not a misunderstanding, it's fraud, and if your bank closes on this mortgage, you'll be financing a criminal act. I hung up and immediately dialed David Kowalski. He'd been my grandmother's attorney, had handled her estate, and had remained on retainer for me specifically, to manage the trust that held the beach house. David answered on the first ring. Sarah, I was just about to call you. You heard. Pacific Coast Bank's legal department contacted me 20 minutes ago. They wanted to verify the trust documents. I've already sent them everything, the original trust agreement, the certificate of trust, the deed showing the trust as sole owner, your position as trustee. I also sent the probate court ruling, and a very strongly worded letter, explaining that any mortgage executed without your consent would be void and potentially criminal. Wednesday, David. They were going to close on Wednesday. Not anymore. I spoke with their chief counsel. The application is frozen pending a full title review. Dennis won't get $1. I released a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. What's my next move? Document everything. Every interaction with Dennis about the property. Every email, text, payment receipt. I'm going to send him a cease and desist letter today. And I'd recommend you consider filing a police report for attempted fraud. Will that go anywhere? Honestly, maybe, maybe not. He could claim it was a misunderstanding, that he believed he had ownership rights, but it creates a paper trail, and if he tries this again, we'll have documented his pattern of behavior. I thanked David and hung up. The sun had nearly set, the sky now deep purple streaked with gold. I should have felt relieved. The mortgage was blocked, the property was safe. David had handled it with his usual efficiency, but I felt something else. Anger, yes, but more than that, a deep exhausted sadness that family could do this, that my own uncle, my grandmother's son, would forge documents and lie to banks to steal property that had been explicitly left to someone else. My phone rang. Uncle Dennis. I let it go to voicemail. He called again, then again. On the fourth call I answered. Sarah, finally. Listen, there's been a huge misunderstanding with the bank. There's no misunderstanding, Uncle Dennis. You applied for a $2 million mortgage on property you don't own. That's called fraud. Now wait just a minute. Your grandmother would have wanted the family to benefit from that property, not just you sitting on it. Grandma left it to me, in a legally binding will that you already tried to overturn in court and lost. She made her wishes very clear. You don't even use the place. It sits empty 11 months a year, while you work your little architecture job in LA. I could have turned it into a rental property, generated income, actually made use of the asset, with $2 million of debt attached to it. This wasn't about generating income, Dennis. This was about you taking out a massive loan using my property as collateral. Our property, family property, my property, legally, ethically, morally mine. And you know it. There was a long silence. When Dennis spoke again, his voice had changed. Harder, meaner. You always were her favorite. Perfect little Sarah, could do no wrong. Never mind that I'm her actual son. Never mind that I spent 20 years taking care of her while you were off at college at your fancy job. But sure, give everything to the granddaughter who visited twice a year. I visited every Sunday for 5 years when she was sick. I sat with her during chemo. I held her hand when she died. You were in Vegas that weekend, if I remember correctly. One weekend. I missed one weekend. You missed a lot more than that, and we both know it. But that's not the point. The point is that Grandma made her choice. The court upheld it, and you need to accept it. I'll never accept it. That property should be mine. Then you'll be disappointed for the rest of your life. Stay away from my house, Dennis. Stay away from my property. If you step foot on it again, without my permission, I'll have you arrested for trespassing. If you forge any more documents, I'll press charges. We're done. I hung up. My hands were shaking. I sat on the beach as the last light faded and the stars began to appear. Tuesday morning, I drove to David's office in Newport Beach. He had his secretary bring coffee and spread the documents across his conference table. The bank is conducting a full investigation, David said. They're looking at their loan officer's procedures, how the application got as far as it did without proper title verification. Will there be consequences? For Dennis, the bank could press charges. Whether they will depends on their legal department's risk assessment. They might decide it's not worth the publicity. David pulled out another folder. But I found something interesting when I was reviewing the trust documents. He slid a paper across to me. It was the original trust agreement, the one my grandmother had established 3 months before she died. I'd read it before, but David pointed to a specific clause I'd overlooked. Section 7.3, Trust Protector Provisions. Your grandmother included a trust protector clause. Essentially, she appointed an independent third party to oversee the trust and ensure it's being administered according to her wishes. That protector has the authority to remove and replace trustees, modify certain administrative provisions, and take legal action against anyone who attempts to fraudulently claim trust assets. Who's the trust protector? Alan Hirsch. He was your grandmother's financial advisor for 30 years. I called him yesterday to give him a heads up about Dennis's mortgage application. He's furious. Is there anything he can do? Actually, yes. As trust protector, he has standing to file a civil suit against Dennis for attempted conversion of trust property. We could seek damages, legal fees, potentially even punitive damages if we can prove malicious intent. I thought about it. More lawsuits, more family warfare, more years of Dennis claiming victimhood at every holiday gathering. Let me think about it, I said. David nodded. Take your time. But Sarah, I want you to understand something. Your grandmother didn't just leave you this property, she protected it. The irrevocable trust, the trust protector clause, the specific language excluding Dennis from any claims. She knew he'd try something like this. She built walls around this asset to keep it safe for you. I felt tears prick my eyes. Grandma had known. She'd seen her son's nature clearly, loved him anyway, but refused to enable his worst impulses. Did she tell you why she set it up this way? David smiled sadly. She said, Dennis makes bad choices. He always has. I love him, but I won't give him the opportunity to destroy what I've built. Sarah has a good head on her shoulders. She'll preserve it, maybe pass it down to her own kids someday. That's what I want. Wednesday afternoon, I received a call from Robert Chen at Pacific Coast Bank. Miss Parker, I wanted to update you personally. The mortgage application has been formally denied. We've also terminated our relationship with Mr. Morrison and flagged his social security number in our fraud prevention system. Are you pressing charges? That's still under discussion with our legal team, but I want to apologize for how far this application proceeded. We had multiple failures in our verification process. If you'd like to file a complaint with the OCC, I'll think about it. Thank you for letting me know. One more thing. During our investigation, we discovered that Mr. Morrison had contacted 3 other banks with similar applications over the past 6 months. None of them processed as far as ours did, but it shows a pattern of behavior. 3 other banks, 6 months of trying to steal my property. Thank you for that information, I said quietly. After I hung up, I sat in my office staring at the architectural drawings on my desk. I was working on a community center design, a project I loved. Clean lines, sustainable materials, spaces designed for people to gather and connect. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. Dennis says you're trying to put him in jail. He's very upset. Can we talk about this like family? I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed back. He tried to steal my house by committing bank fraud. There's nothing to talk about. She responded immediately. He made a mistake. He's family. We forgive family. Forgiveness doesn't mean letting him keep trying to rob me. I've made my position clear. You're tearing this family apart. I put the phone down and didn't respond. My mother had always enabled Dennis, made excuses for his failures, blamed everyone else for his problems. It was exhausting. Thursday morning, I drove down to Laguna Beach. I needed to see the property, to walk through it, to remind myself why this mattered. The house was exactly as I'd left it 3 weeks ago. I'd hired a property management company to handle basic maintenance, lawn care, pool cleaning, minor repairs. They'd been doing an excellent job. I unlocked the front door and stepped inside. Hardwood floors, high ceilings, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Pacific. My grandmother's furniture was still here. I'd kept most of it, unable to part with the physical remnants of her presence. I walked through each room, remembering. The kitchen where she'd taught me to make her famous lemon bars. The living room where we'd watched old movies on rainy afternoons. The master bedroom where she'd spent her final months. Too weak to go downstairs, but insisting on keeping the curtains open so she could see the ocean. "Promise me you'll keep it," she'd whispered one afternoon, her voice barely audible. "Don't let Dennis or anyone else pressure you to sell it. This is yours, your anchor, your inheritance." "I promise, Grandma. He'll try. You know he'll try, but you're stronger than him, smarter. You have David, you have the trust protections. Don't let anyone take this from you." I'd held her hand, and promised. And I'd kept that promise, even when it meant standing alone against my entire family. I walked out onto the back deck. The ocean stretched endlessly before me, waves rolling in with perfect regularity. A pod of dolphins swam past, their fins cutting through the water. My phone rang. "David, Sarah, I just got a very interesting call. Dennis's attorney contacted me." Dennis has an attorney. Apparently he hired someone after the bank denied the mortgage. "They're claiming that you've been unjustly enriched by the property, that Dennis has a moral claim based on his status as your grandmother's son, and they're threatening to file suit." "On what grounds?" "He already lost in probate court. Undue influence." "Again." "They're claiming new evidence." I laughed, actually laughed. What new evidence could they possibly have? "They won't say. My guess. They have nothing. This is a pressure tactic. They're hoping you'll agree to some kind of settlement just to make them go away." "What do you recommend?" "Call their bluff. Let them file suit if they want. It'll get thrown out just like the last one did, and this time we can potentially pursue sanctions for filing a frivolous lawsuit." "Do it." 3 weeks later, Dennis's attorney filed suit. David was right. It was the same undue influence claim with zero new evidence, just recycled arguments from the original probate case. The family pressure intensified. My mother called daily. My aunt left tearful voicemails about family unity. Even my cousins started weighing in, some supporting Dennis, others carefully neutral, none supporting me outright. "Just give him something," my mother pleaded. "Sell the house and split it with him. End this nightmare." "No, Sarah, please. He's desperate. He's talking about bankruptcy, about losing everything, because he made bad investments, because he overspent, because he gambled. None of that is my responsibility, Mom. He's family. So am I. And Grandma left the property to me. Why doesn't that matter to you? Why is Dennis's financial irresponsibility more important than respecting Grandma's explicit wishes?" She had no answer for that. The lawsuit dragged on for 4 months. Discovery, depositions, motions. Dennis claimed my grandmother had been mentally incompetent when she created the trust. The probate court records proved otherwise. She'd undergone a complete psychiatric evaluation specifically to establish capacity. Dennis claimed I'd isolated my grandmother from the family. I had emails, photos, visitor logs from the hospice facility, showing dozens of family members visiting regularly, including Dennis himself. Dennis claimed the property was worth far less than appraised value, and that I'd manipulated the trust to exclude him from his rightful inheritance. The current property tax assessment showed a value of $4.2 million, and the trust documents made no mention of Dennis at all. You can't exclude someone who was never included. Every claim fell apart under scrutiny. In month 5, the judge scheduled a summary judgment hearing. David was confident. "They have no case," he told me the day before the hearing. "No evidence, no legal theory that holds water, nothing but Dennis's belief that he deserves something he was never entitled to." The hearing lasted 45 minutes. The judge reviewed the documents, listened to brief arguments from both sides, and ruled from the bench. "Mr. Morrison's claims are without merit. The previous probate court ruling is res judicata, already decided. There is no new evidence presented here that would warrant revisiting that decision. The trust documents are clear, properly executed, and beyond dispute. Summary judgment is granted in favor of the defendant. Case dismissed. The judge paused, looking directly at Dennis's attorney. Additionally, the court finds this lawsuit to be frivolous and brought in bad faith. The defendant is awarded attorney's fees and costs. Mr. Morrison's counsel, I strongly suggest you advise your client that any further litigation on this matter may result in sanctions. David and I walked out of the courthouse into the bright Orange County sunshine. It's over, David said. Truly over this time, until he tries something else. If he tries something else, we'll have this ruling to point to, and next time there will be sanctions. He knows that now. 2 weeks later, I received a check from Dennis for $47,000. David's legal fees and costs. It must have devastated him financially. Part of me felt bad, part of me didn't. My mother called that evening. Are you happy now? He had to liquidate his retirement account to pay your lawyers. He chose to file a baseless lawsuit, Mom. Actions have consequences. You've destroyed him. No, he tried to destroy himself by stealing property that wasn't his. I just protected what's mine. She hung up on me. 6 months passed. The family stopped calling. I heard through my brother Marcus that Dennis and my mother were no longer speaking to me, had written me out of the family narrative, told everyone who would listen that I'd stolen their inheritance through manipulation and legal tricks. I didn't correct the record. People who wanted to believe the truth had access to the court documents. People who wanted to believe Dennis would believe him regardless of evidence. I started spending more time at the beach house. Weekends at first, then long weekends. Eventually working remotely 2 days a week so I could stay down in Laguna Beach. I began to understand what my grandmother had seen in this place. Not just the monetary value, though that was substantial, but the peace, the rhythm of the waves, the way the light changed throughout the day, the sense of permanence in a constantly changing world. I hired a local architect to help me make some updates. Nothing major, just modernizing the kitchen, updating the bathrooms, refinishing the deck, preserving the character while improving the function. One Saturday afternoon, I was sitting on the deck when a car pulled into the driveway. I tensed, then relaxed when I recognized Marcus getting out. Surprise visit, I called down. Wanted to see how you're doing. He climbed the stairs and sat in the chair next to me. This place looks great, thanks. I'm actually thinking about renting out the bottom floor as a vacation rental. Generate some income, offset the property taxes. That's smart. He was quiet for a moment. Mom and Dennis are still not talking to you. I know. It bothers you. Sometimes. But I made the right choice, Marcus. Grandma left this to me. She knew what she was doing. I know she did. He pulled an envelope from his jacket pocket. I found this in some of Mom's old boxes. It's a letter Grandma wrote to you. I think she meant to give it to you before she died, but ran out of time. My hands shook as I opened the envelope. The handwriting was shaky. She must have written this in her final weeks, but unmistakably my grandmother's. My dearest Sarah, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and I imagine Dennis has made things difficult for you. I'm sorry for that. I raised him the best I could, but some patterns run too deep to break. I'm leaving you the beach house because I trust you to preserve it, not exploit it, to cherish it, not sell it, to understand that some things have value beyond their price tag. Dennis will never understand that. He sees the world in terms of what he can take, what he deserves, what he's owed. I love him, but I won't enable his worst impulses. You, my dear, see the world differently. You build things, you create beauty. You understand that real wealth isn't about having more, it's about appreciating what you have. The house is yours. Don't let anyone take it from you. Not Dennis, not the rest of the family, not even your own doubts. Stand firm. You're stronger than you know. All my love, Grandma. I wiped tears from my face. Marcus put his hand on my shoulder. She knew, I whispered. She always knew, about all of us. We sat together in silence, watching the sun set over the Pacific Ocean, the waves rolling in forever, the house standing solid behind us. Uncle Dennis had tried to take it with lies and forgery. He tried to take it with lawsuits and family pressure. He tried to take it with guilt and manipulation, but the house was still mine. Protected by legal documents, yes, but more than that, protected by my grandmother's wisdom, by her foresight. by her absolute clarity about what mattered. The senior underwriter at Pacific Coast Bank had discovered the irrevocable trust documents just in time. David had reinforced the legal protections. The judge had dismissed Dennis's fraudulent claims, but ultimately I'd protected it myself, by standing firm, by refusing to compromise on principle, by understanding that family love doesn't mean letting yourself be victimized. My phone buzzed, an email from the property management company, 3 inquiries about renting the lower floor for the upcoming summer season. I smiled and started typing responses. The beach house would generate income. It would provide beautiful vacation memories for families, and it would remain mine, preserved and cherished, exactly as my grandmother had intended. The waves crashed against the shore, the sun painted the sky in shades of gold and crimson, and I sat on the deck of my beach house, truly legally irrevocably mine, and felt at peace. The locksmith's van was still in the driveway when I arrived at 2:15 p.m. on a Tuesday afternoon. I'd driven 3 hours from the city to the beach house, my beach house, because my neighbor Mrs. Alvarez had called me that morning, her voice tight with concern. "Jenna, there's a locksmith at your house right now, and that woman is here, your brother's ex-wife. She's got him changing all the locks. She told him she owns the place now." My stomach had dropped. What? Vanessa is there? She showed up yesterday with suitcases. I thought maybe you'd given her permission to stay for a while, after David passing and everything. But this morning she's got the locksmith, and she's talking about renovations and moving furniture around. I don't think this is right, Jenna. Thank you, Mrs. Alvarez. Thank you so much for calling me. I'm leaving right now. I'll be there by 2. Should I call the police? Not yet. Let me get there first and figure out what's happening. The drive from San Francisco to the coast had felt endless. I'd called my attorney's office but got voicemail. Robert was in court all day. I'd left an urgent message. Then I'd just driven, my hands tight on the steering wheel, my mind racing through possibilities. None of them made sense. David had been dead for 8 months. Vanessa had moved out of their apartment 6 months ago. We hadn't spoken since the funeral. Now I stood at the end of the driveway watching a man in coveralls install new deadbolts on the front door. The door my grandmother had painted turquoise in 1982, the same shade as the ocean on a clear day. The door I'd walked through every summer of my childhood, usually carrying a bucket of shells or a bodyboard. Sand stuck to my legs. My sister-in-law, ex-sister-in-law, technically since my brother David had died 8 months ago, emerged from the house carrying a cardboard box. Vanessa, 41, blonde highlights always perfect, always dressed like she was going to brunch at a country club. Today she wore white jeans and a navy blazer, sunglasses pushed up on her head. She saw me and her expression hardened. "Jenna, what are you doing here?" "This is my house, Vanessa. What are you doing?" She set the box down on the porch. I could see it was full of my things, books, photo frames, the ceramic mermaid I'd made in middle school art class, and walked toward me with deliberate measured steps. "Your house?" David and I lived here for 6 years. We renovated the kitchen, spent $40,000 on new cabinets, appliances, that beautiful tile backsplash. We replaced the entire back deck when the old one started rotting. We paid for a new roof 3 years ago when the storms damaged the old shingles. This was our home, our life together. Every weekend, every summer, holidays, anniversaries, this place is full of our memories. David never owned this house. My grandmother left it to me in her will when she died in 2019. David lived here because I let him, because he was my brother and he needed somewhere stable after his divorce from his first wife. It was supposed to be temporary, just until he got back on his feet. That's not what David told me. Her voice had an edge now. He said the house was family property, that it had belonged to your grandmother, but when she died it became his, that we'd live here forever, maybe raise kids here someday. He never once mentioned that you owned it, that we were just guests in someone else's house. Then he lied to you, or he believed something that wasn't true. Either way, the legal reality is that the deed is in my name. It's been in my name since October 2019. I have all the paperwork, the transfer documents, the title, everything. I've been paying the property taxes every year. I've been paying the insurance premiums. This house is legally, definitively, unquestionably mine. The locksmith emerged from the house, wiping his hands on a rag. "All done, ma'am. 3 new deadbolts, all keyed the same. Here are your copies." He handed Vanessa a set of keys. She took them without breaking eye contact with me. "Thank you. Please send the invoice to my email. Vanessa, you can't change the locks on my property. I just did. She pulled out her phone and typed something. And I've hired security to make sure you don't harass me or damage anything while I'm getting settled. Getting settled? You're moving in? I've already moved in. My furniture arrives this afternoon. This house is worth $1.8 million, Jenna. You think I'm just going to walk away from it because you have some piece of paper? That piece of paper is a deed, legal proof of ownership. She smiled, cold and sharp. We'll see what a judge says. David died without a will. Under California law, I'm entitled to his estate. And this house was part of his life, part of our life together. You never even lived here. You visit twice a year. You never belonged here anyway. The words hit like a slap. Before I could respond, a white pickup truck pulled up behind the locksmith's van. Two men in black polo shirts with Secure Guard Services embroidered on the chest got out. Vanessa walked over to them. Thank you for coming so quickly. This is the property. I need you to make sure this woman doesn't enter the premises or cause any disturbances. She pointed at me. The older guard, maybe 50, with a military bearing, looked uncomfortable. Ma'am, do you have documentation showing you own this property? I'm in the process of securing my legal rights, but I'm living here now, and she's trespassing. He looked at me. Miss, this is private property. I'm going to have to ask you to leave. I pulled out my phone and opened my photos, finding the image I'd saved months ago. This is the property deed. My name is on it. Jenna Morrison. This woman has no legal right to be here. The guard studied my phone screen, then looked at Vanessa. Ma'am, if she's the deed holder, the estate is in probate, Vanessa said smoothly. Nothing is finalized. Meanwhile, I'm David's widow, and I have every right to be here. Are you going to do the job I'm paying you for or not? The guard shifted uncomfortably. We're here to prevent disturbances and trespassing. If there's a legal dispute about ownership, you ladies need to sort that out in court. But ma'am, he looked at me. I think it's best if you leave for now. File a police report if you need to. I wanted to argue, to call the police myself right then, but I could see Vanessa's expression, triumphant, daring me to cause a scene, and I realized something. She wanted me to make this a confrontation. She wanted witnesses to see me as unstable, aggressive, the crazy ex-sister-in-law who wouldn't accept reality. So I smiled. Okay, I'll leave, but Vanessa, I'll be filing paperwork today. Enjoy your afternoon. I walked back to my car and drove exactly 3 blocks away, parking on a side street with a view back toward the house. Then I called my attorney, Robert Feldman, who'd handled my grandmother's estate. Robert, Vanessa changed the locks on the beach house and hired security guards. She's moving in. A long pause. She has no legal basis to do that. The house is yours, clear title. David was never on the deed. She's claiming widow's rights, saying the estate is in probate. David's estate is in probate, yes, but the beach house isn't part of his estate. It never was. Jenna, you need to file for an emergency injunction. We can have her removed within 48 hours. What about the police? Can I call them now? You can, but this is a civil matter, not criminal. They'll tell you to handle it through the courts. The injunction is faster. File it. Whatever it takes. I'll have it ready by end of business today. In the meantime, document everything. Photos, videos, witnesses. If she damages anything, we'll add that to the claim. I hung up and watched the house. At 3:45 p.m., a massive moving truck pulled up, followed by a delivery van from a high-end furniture store I recognized. Pacific Coast Interiors, where a sofa cost $6,000. Workers started unloading. A white sectional, a glass dining table, modern chairs, a king-size bed, dressers, lamps, decorative items. I took photos of everything with my phone. The truck's license plate, California commercial plates, number 8Y23451. The delivery receipts the driver carried on a clipboard. I zoomed in and could make out the Pacific Coast Interiors letterhead, and what looked like multiple pages of inventory. The furniture pieces being carried inside by a team of 4 movers. First the sectional pieces, cream-colored leather that probably cost $8,000 alone. Then dining chairs in sets of 2, a glass tabletop wrapped in protective padding, a headboard and footboard in dark wood, matching nightstands, a dresser, lamps with crystal bases, decorative pillows in clear plastic bags. Vanessa directing traffic from the porch, pointing and gesturing like she was starring in a home makeover show, her phone to her ear, probably talking to the interior designer she'd likely hired. I counted each piece as it went in. Living room set, approximately $12,000. Dining furniture, $8,000. Bedroom suite, $15,000. Accessories and lighting, $5,000. Plus tax, delivery, installation. She'd probably spent $50,000 easily, maybe more. Mrs. Alvarez came out of her house next door and walked over to my car. She was 73, had lived in her house for 40 years, had known my grandmother since the early 80s, when Grandma had first bought this place. They'd had coffee together every Sunday morning for decades. Jenna, what's happening? That woman is acting like she owns the place. She doesn't. She's trying to steal it. Mrs. Alvarez, are you seeing all this furniture being delivered? I've been watching since noon. First the locksmith, then those security men, now this. It must be costing her a fortune. Probably $50,000 worth of furniture, at least. Mrs. Alvarez shook her head. Your grandmother would be horrified. That house has been in your family since 1978. I know, but I'm going to get it back. I promise. She patted my hand through the car window. If you need anything, photos, statements, testimony, you call me. I've got my phone right here, taking pictures too. By 6 p.m., the furniture delivery was complete. The moving truck pulled away. The security guards remained, sitting in their truck in the driveway, presumably on an overnight shift. Lights went on inside the house as dusk fell. I could see Vanessa moving around inside, arranging things, making herself at home in my grandmother's house. I drove to a hotel in town and checked in. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Vanessa in that house, sleeping in a new bed she'd bought, surrounded by new furniture, acting like she'd won. But I had something she didn't know about. My grandmother had insisted I get comprehensive property insurance when she transferred the deed to me. Houses on the coast need good coverage, she'd said. Storms, flooding, break-ins. You never know. The policy was with Coastal States Insurance, $2.5 million coverage, with me listed as the sole policyholder and owner. I had the policy documents in a folder in my hotel room, along with all the property paperwork. Wednesday morning I drove back to the neighborhood and parked in my usual spot 3 blocks away, where I had a clear view of the house, through the gap between 2 other beach homes. At 9:30 a.m., something interesting happened. A white sedan with Coastal States Insurance, magnetic signs on both doors pulled up to the house, and parked behind the security guard's truck. A man in his 50s got out, wearing khaki pants, a blue polo shirt with the Coastal States logo embroidered on the chest, and carrying an iPad in a leather portfolio and a professional camera with a large lens. He moved with the efficiency of someone who'd done this job for years, checking his iPad, glancing at the house, making notes. I watched as he approached the security guard's truck, and spoke to them briefly through the driver's window. The older guard pointed toward the house. The adjuster nodded, made more notes on his iPad, then walked up to the front door and knocked. Vanessa came out almost immediately, as if she'd been watching for him. Even from 3 blocks away, I could see her body language shift. She stood straighter, smiled, gestured welcomingly. They talked on the front porch for what looked like 5 minutes, Vanessa animated, pointing at different parts of the house, the adjuster nodding and taking notes. He took photos of the house exterior, the door, the windows, the siding, multiple shots from different angles, professional and thorough. Then they went inside together, and I couldn't see anything more. I immediately pulled out my phone and called the insurance company. The number was on my policy card, which I kept in my wallet. The line rang 3 times before someone answered. Coastal States Insurance Claims Department, this is Amanda speaking. May I have your policy number, please? I read it off my card. CSI 4000, 472 8839. My name is Jenna Morrison. Typing sounds, then a pause. Yes, Miss Morrison, I have your account here. How can I help you today? I just saw an adjuster at my property, 847 Seaside Drive, and I didn't file a claim. Can you tell me what's going on? Why is there an adjuster at my house? More typing, longer this time. I could hear computer keys clicking rapidly. Let me pull up the claim details. Okay, Yes, I see it. A claim was filed yesterday afternoon at 4:47 p.m. The claimant reported extensive vandalism and property damage at the address you mentioned. My stomach dropped like I'd just driven over a cliff edge. Who filed the claim? What name is on it? The claim was filed by a Vanessa Morrison, who identified herself as the property owner and the primary policyholder on the account. She's not the owner, and she's absolutely not the policyholder. I'm Jenna Morrison. Look at your records. My name is on that policy. I've been the only policyholder since 2019, when my grandmother transferred the property to me. Vanessa is my ex-sister-in-law, my brother's widow. She has no legal connection to this property whatsoever. A long pause. When Amanda spoke again, her voice had changed completely, sharper, more alert, with an edge of urgency. Miss Morrison, this is very serious. Insurance fraud is a felony offense in the state of California. Are you saying this claim was filed fraudulently by someone who has no legal right to the property or the insurance policy? Yes, absolutely yes. She broke into my property 2 days ago, changed the locks, moved in without permission, and apparently filed a false insurance claim. I have all the documentation proving I'm the owner, the deed, the tax bills, everything. I need to flag this immediately and contact our fraud investigation unit. The adjuster who's there now, Tom Brennan, needs to be informed right away. Can you come to the property? I'm 3 blocks away. I can be there in 2 minutes. Please come now. I'm calling Tom directly. I drove to the house and parked on the street. The insurance adjuster was coming back out the front door when his phone rang. I watched him answer, listen, his expression changing from neutral to alert to alarmed. He looked around, spotted me standing by my car. I'd gotten out and was waving, and held up a finger. Wait. He said something to Vanessa, who was standing in the doorway. Her face went from smiling to confused to angry. He walked down the driveway toward me. Miss Morrison, Jenna Morrison, yes, that's me. He looked at his iPad, then at me. Can I see your ID, please? I handed him my driver's license. He compared it to something on his screen, then nodded. The woman in the house filed a claim yesterday, stating she's the property owner and policyholder. She reported extensive vandalism, broken windows, damaged floors, graffiti on the walls. She's asking for $43,000 in coverage for repairs and replacement. There's no vandalism, she's lying. She changed the locks 2 days ago and moved in without permission. I'm the actual owner. Can you prove that? I pulled out my folder. Here's the property deed with my name. Here's the insurance policy with my name as the sole policyholder. Here's my grandmother's will, showing she left me the house. Here's the property tax bill from last month. It comes to my address, and I paid it. He studied each document carefully, taking photos with his iPad. Then he looked up at the house, where Vanessa was now standing on the porch with her arms crossed, watching us. Miss Morrison, I need to verify some things with the company, but this appears to be a fraudulent claim. Filing a false insurance claim is a felony in California. I'm going to need to speak with the other Miss Morrison again, and I may need to contact law enforcement. I want to go inside. That's my house. Let me handle this first. He walked back up to the porch, and I followed at a distance. Morrison, he said to Vanessa, I need to ask you some direct questions about the ownership of this property, and I need honest answers, because filing a false insurance claim is a serious crime. I told you, I'm the owner. My late husband and I lived here for 6 years. We invested tens of thousands of dollars in improvements and maintenance. Do you have a deed showing your name as the legal owner of this property? She hesitated, and in that hesitation, I could see her whole story starting to crumble. The estate is being settled. It's complicated. There are legal proceedings happening. The paperwork isn't finalized yet. Ma'am, that's not what I asked. Do you have a deed with your name on it? A title document, any legal paperwork showing you have ownership rights to this specific property? I know, not yet, but my attorney says, were you listed as the policyholder on the insurance policy for this property before you filed the claim yesterday? Another hesitation. David was the policyholder, my husband, before he passed. No ma'am. David Morrison was never listed on this insurance policy. I'm looking at the account history right now. Jenna Morrison has been the sole policyholder since October 2019, when the policy was opened. Before that, the policyholder was Elizabeth Morrison, Jenna's grandmother. David's name appears nowhere in these records. Not as a policyholder, not as an additional insured, nowhere. Vanessa's face had gone from confident to flushed to pale, in the span of 30 seconds. That can't be right. David said. Ma'am, I don't care what David said. I care about what the legal documents say. And he nodded toward me, has shown me a deed with her name on it, dated 2019. An insurance policy with her name, as the sole policyholder, property tax bills addressed to her. Can you provide any legal documentation showing you have any ownership rights whatsoever? Vanessa's face flushed red. She's lying. She's trying to steal what's rightfully mine. David and ma'am, I'm going to be very clear with you. Filing a false insurance claim is a felony, under California Penal Code Section 550. It carries a penalty of up to 5 years in prison, and fines up to $50,000. If you filed a fraudulent claim, I strongly advise you to withdraw it immediately, and cooperate with our investigation. Investigation, her voice went up an octave. I reported damage to my home. This isn't your home, ma'am. And our adjuster who came out this morning, that was me, found no evidence of the extensive vandalism you reported. The property appears to be in excellent condition, except for some new furniture that's been recently installed. I stepped forward. Furniture she had delivered yesterday. $50,000 worth. The adjuster looked at me, then at Vanessa. You purchased new furniture after filing a vandalism claim. Vanessa's mouth opened and closed. She was trapped and she knew it. I'm calling the police, the adjuster said, pulling out his phone. Miss Morrison, he looked at me, as the actual property owner and policyholder. You should also call local law enforcement to report the illegal occupation of your property. The security guards had gotten out of their truck and were standing nearby, looking extremely uncomfortable. The older one approached. Ma'am, is there a problem? She hired you under false pretenses, I said. This is my property. She's been illegally occupying it. He looked at Vanessa. Ma'am, you told us you were the owner. I am. This is all a misunderstanding. No misunderstanding, the adjuster said firmly. The deed and insurance policy are both in Miss Jenna Morrison's name. This woman filed a fraudulent insurance claim and has been occupying the property without legal authority. The security guard nodded slowly. Then our contract is void. We're not going to be part of whatever this is. He walked back to his truck, and his partner followed. They packed up their equipment and drove away within 3 minutes. A sheriff's car pulled up 10 minutes later. Deputy Martinez listened to the whole story, examined my documents, took statements from the insurance adjuster and from Mrs. Alvarez, who'd come out when she saw the commotion. Miss Morrison, he said to Vanessa, you need to vacate this property immediately. You have no legal right to be here, and you've changed locks on property you don't own. The homeowner is being very gracious by not pressing charges for trespassing right now, but if you don't leave, I will arrest you. What about my furniture? I spent $50,000. That's a civil matter between you and whoever sold you the furniture, but you need to remove it from this property. You have 48 hours to arrange for its removal, or Miss Morrison can dispose of it as she sees fit. Vanessa's face crumbled. For the first time, she looked genuinely frightened. I don't have anywhere to go. I spent everything I had on this house, on the furniture, on the lawyers. You should have verified ownership before spending that money, Deputy Martinez said, not unkindly. I'm going to give you 2 hours to pack your personal belongings and leave. The furniture can stay for 48 hours while you arrange for movers, but you cannot stay here tonight. I watched Vanessa pack. She moved through the house mechanically, throwing clothes into suitcases, grabbing toiletries from the bathroom. She didn't look at me. The fight had gone out of her completely. Why did you do this? I asked finally. You had to know you'd get caught. She sat down on the expensive white sectional she'd bought yesterday. David always told me this house would be ours. He said your grandmother promised it to him. When he died, I had nothing. The apartment was rented. His life insurance barely covered the funeral. I thought if I just acted like I owned it, maybe the courts would side with me. Maybe you'd give up. This house is all I have left of my grandmother, of my childhood summers. I would never give up. I know that now. She looked around at the furniture, at the brand new items she'd spent a fortune on. I can't even return most of this. It's been assembled, Installed. I'm going to lose everything. You committed insurance fraud, Vanessa. You could go to prison. I know. Her voice was barely a whisper. I just wanted something. Something that felt permanent. David and I lived here, and it felt like home. And then he died and everything fell apart, and I thought. She trailed off. Tom Brennan, the insurance adjuster, knocked on the open door. Miss Morrison, Jenna, I need you to come walk through the property with me. We need to document its actual condition for our fraud investigation. I left Vanessa on the couch and walked through the house with Tom, describing the condition of every room. No vandalism, no damage, nothing except new furniture, and some rearranged pictures. She'll face criminal charges, Tom said. Our company prosecutes fraud aggressively. False claims cost everyone money, and we don't tolerate it. She'll be looking at felony charges, possibly jail time, definitely a permanent record. What happens to the claim? Denied, obviously, and flagged in the National Insurance Database. She'll have trouble getting any kind of insurance after this: home, auto, anything, plus the legal penalties. In the living room, Vanessa was on her phone, crying, apparently talking to a friend or family member. I don't know. I don't have anywhere. No, I spent everything. Yes, everything. By 5 p.m., she was gone. Her car packed with suitcases, driving away slowly, leaving behind $50,000 worth of furniture she'd never be able to use. Deputy Martinez had given her the 48-hour notice in writing, and she'd signed it. Mrs. Alvarez came over as I was standing in the driveway, holding the new keys Vanessa had made, which Deputy Martinez had confiscated and given to me. You got your house back, she said, smiling. I did. Thank you for calling me, for being a witness. Your grandmother would be proud of you. You fought for this place the right way. Inside, the house looked strange with Vanessa's furniture scattered around. The white sectional where my grandmother's floral couch had been. The glass dining table where we'd had wooden farmhouse table. It felt wrong, like someone had tried to erase my family's history and replace it with catalog pages. I called a charity donation service that afternoon. They could come on Friday to pick up everything: couch, dining set, bedroom furniture, lamps, all of it. Someone who actually needed furniture could benefit from Vanessa's expensive mistake. 2 days later, Robert Feldman called me. The district attorney's office has filed charges against Vanessa Morrison. Insurance fraud, filing a false police report, and attempted grand theft. She's looking at up to 5 years if convicted. Will she actually go to prison? Probably not for a first offense if she pleads guilty and shows remorse. More likely probation, community service, restitution, and a felony record. But Jenna, the insurance company, is going after her hard. They're seeking full investigative costs, legal fees, and damages. She's going to be paying them back for years. What about the furniture? That's between her and the furniture store. She signed the contracts. She's responsible for payment. They'll probably sue her for the balance if she can't return it. I thought about Vanessa's face when Deputy Martinez told her to leave. The complete collapse of whatever plan she'd constructed in her mind. Robert, I feel bad for her. Is that stupid? No, it's human. She made terrible choices, but they came from desperation, not malice. Doesn't excuse what she did, but I understand your sympathy. After we hung up, I walked through the house one more time. The furniture was gone now, donated to families who'd lost everything in a fire up north. The rooms were empty, echoing, but they felt right again. Clean, mine. I'd brought some of my grandmother's things from storage: photo albums, her favorite chair, the quilts she'd made. I set them up in the living room, and the house started to feel like itself again. Mrs. Alvarez came by that evening with homemade cookies. Your grandmother's house is back, she said, looking around approvingly. It never left. It was just hiding under someone else's bad decisions for a few days. What will you do with it now? I looked out the window at the ocean, visible from the living room. The same view I'd had as a child, sitting on Grandma's lap, watching the waves. Live here, I think. At least part-time. Maybe rent it out when I'm not here. But keep it in the family, the way Grandma wanted. She'd be happy with that. 3 weeks later, I received an official letter from Coastal States Insurance. The fraud investigation was closed. Vanessa had pleaded guilty to all charges. She'd been sentenced to 3 years probation, 500 hours of community service, ordered to pay $15,000 in restitution to the insurance company, and received a permanent felony record. She'd also been required to pay for the locksmith service she'd hired to change my locks. the security guards, and was facing a civil lawsuit from Pacific Coast Interiors for the furniture she'd tried to return and couldn't. According to Robert, she'd lost everything: her savings, her credit, her future employment prospects with a felony record, all because she'd convinced herself she deserved a house she had no legal right to. I felt sorry for her, in an abstract way, but mostly I felt relieved. The house was mine, legally and definitively, with no more challenges or disputes. The title was clear. The insurance policy was intact. Everything was as it should be. I started spending weekends at the beach house, slowly refurnishing it with pieces that felt right, some vintage finds that reminded me of Grandma's style, some new pieces that were practical for coastal living. I planted flowers in the garden, the same varieties Grandma had grown. I repainted the trim on the windows. Mrs. Alvarez and I had coffee on the porch every Saturday morning, watching the ocean, talking about the neighborhood, and the past, and what might come next. "You know," she said one morning, "your grandmother always said this house had a way of protecting itself, of making sure it ended up with the people who were meant to have it. You think the house somehow caused all this? Vanessa's mistakes?" She smiled. "I think the house just waited. It knew you'd fight for it, and when Vanessa made that insurance claim, the house gave you exactly what you needed. A clear, undeniable way to prove what was yours." I thought about that, about how Vanessa's own fraudulent claim had been the thing that brought everything to light, how the insurance adjuster had been the perfect neutral authority to validate my ownership, how her overconfidence had been her downfall. "Maybe you're right," I said, "or maybe people who don't belong somewhere always find a way to reveal themselves. Either way, you're here now, where you belong." I looked out at the ocean, at the morning sun sparkling on the water, at the beach where I'd learned to swim and build sand castles and dream about the future. The house stood solid behind me, weathered cedar shingles and turquoise door and windows that had seen 3 generations of my family. Vanessa had tried to take it with locks and furniture, and false claims. But some things can't be stolen. Some things belong to you in ways that go deeper than deeds and policies, in ways that reveal themselves when tested. The house was mine. It had always been mine, and now everyone knew it. 6 months later, I was sitting on the porch reading when a car pulled up. Vanessa got out, moving slowly, looking diminished somehow, smaller than I remembered. I stood up, uncertain. "I'm not here to cause trouble," she said from the driveway. "I just wanted to apologize, in person, not through lawyers or letters." "Okay." I convinced myself I deserved this house, that David had promised it to me, that you didn't care about it, that it was somehow mine by right. I was wrong about all of it, and I destroyed my whole life trying to take something that was never mine to begin with. "I'm sorry you're going through all that. Don't be. I earned it. I made the choices." She looked at the house, at the turquoise door. "It's beautiful. Your grandmother had good taste, and you fought for it the right way. Through the law, through the truth. I tried to cheat, and I lost everything. What will you do now? Work, pay off my debts, try to rebuild some kind of life with a felony record, which turns out to be pretty hard. Learn to accept that I can't have everything I want just because I want it." She smiled, bitter. "It's a lesson I should have learned a long time ago." She got back in her car and drove away. I watched her go, feeling something like closure settling over everything. Mrs. Alvarez came out of her house, watching the car disappear down the street. "Was that her?" "Yeah," she apologized. "That took courage." Maybe, or maybe she just finally understood what she'd lost. We stood there in the afternoon sun, the ocean breeze carrying the smell of salt and kelp, the house solid and permanent behind us. "Your grandmother," Mrs. Alvarez said, "she always said this house would take care of you if you took care of it." I planned to do exactly that, and I did.